I got some information about the flag, and I just want to know how you were chosen to represent the refugee nation and how you feel about that.
Okay, so the, firstly, the flag came out of representing as a symbol for refugees around the world. Last year, for the first time, refugees has gotten a bit of a representation at the Olympics, where 10 refugees from around the world participated at the Olympics. That was the first time done, and however, they did not had a flag or an anthem as they were walking in on the stadium. So the refugee flag was born out of this to try to be representative. And what it stands for is that the life vest refugees are wearing as they cross the Mediterranean and many other seas. Um, as you know, the life
Or the
vest,
life that what?
the
It
life
stands for the life.
vest, the life vest, yeah, the life vest color is usually orange and with a black on it. So the refugee flag has an orange with a black stripe at the bottom, and it represents the life vest refugees are wearing as a symbol in unity to recognize refugees with. And on how I got involved into the Refugee Nation and the refugee advocacy work that I've been doing. Well, I'm a refugee myself from Eritrea, and I've been living in refugee camps and moving from country to country, seeking a more safer and better opportunity for education. And in that process, I've seen the first-hand account of what a refugee life is. And I continue to lose many of my friends who grew up with me as they try to cross the Mediterranean Sea through the infamous boats. And so I set out to do something about it. So I advocate at the local, national, and international level, speaking on the plight of refugees around the world. Last year, I had the privilege of waving the refugee flag for the first time at the bank of the Canadian Parliament. And that's how I got involved with the Refugee Nation. Yes, so there was an international conference that took place in Canada that brought world leaders and representative young leaders, world leaders and also young leaders representative of every nation on earth. And for the first time, the refugee flag was recognized at the event, in which every nation's flag was waved, and along that, also the Refugee Nation.
Okay. I just want to go back. When you say jumping from camp to camp and losing friends, about how many camps would you say you were in?
I was only in one refugee camp, but I moved from country to country.
Okay, okay, okay.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Another question I would ask is, what would you like to? Okay, so me being from Eritrea but growing up in America, what would you like to see us in the diaspora and around the refugee crisis in our own countries?
Well, to understand what's going on, to learn more, to question yourself why people flee, and instead of just listening to what people tell you, engage with those refugees, sit down with them and ask them, why did you flee? Why did you left your country? And that would be the first-hand account to learn why those people flee. Secondly is to even do your own research. Go to the websites, see the international organizations around the world, what they say about this country. And to not be biased, look at multiple sources. And look at what the country is going through, or the political atmosphere of the country. Or if you get the chance, this I believe is a great media outreach. Reach out to those governments and ask them the necessary questions on why people from their countries and nations leave. But most importantly, be compassionate towards your fellow human beings, not necessarily because they are from the same country, but because they are human beings like you who aspire better life opportunity, goals, but most importantly, a place to call home, a safe place to live.
Okay. And this is a little bit more personal to our country. What changes in Eritrea would or could or would be sustainable around education, politics, human rights, whichever topic you feel comfortable? Um,
So in the Eritrean scenario, there is lack of freedom. There is lack of freedom of expression, lack of freedom of assembly. Uh, there is no rule of law to come to try to define it in short. The fact that there is no rule of law, people live in fear. The fact that people live in fear, they cannot even advocate or they cannot really stand out for or question. So in the case of Eritrea, what I would want to see is having an inclusive constitution and the constitution be implemented. Or there was a constitution of 1997 that was ratified but not implemented. So perhaps that constitution could be implemented and that could be the starting point. And within that constitution, it does allow all those aspects that I just mentioned it to you. So those things needs to come on board. As you know, between 1995 to early 2001, there was free medias. Those medias were shut down. So I would like them to be reopened and exercise their rights. Also, the Constitution of 1997 has been ratified but not implemented. I'd like this Constitution to be up and running and implemented and people to follow the Constitution. And in that means rule of law, everybody to adhere to rule of law. That's not the case today.
I have a quick question. Only this is more of my ignorance. So before 95, was there not a media available? It was only between 95 and 2001?
No, there was media, but the whole thing started to evolve as the independence were achieved, which is in 1991. But those medias become very visible in the dates of 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, until they were shut down in 2001.
Trust me, we would all like to see free media, of course. I never really understood that whole situation, and I still haven't got any answers around that.
Yeah, well, media is one way to know what's going on, and one way to scrutinize and find the truth about events and things. And media sets a lot part of democracy, if you might call, because people needs to get informed. We all aspire towards education. What does education make you? Education makes you to learn more, to be knowledgeable, to ask the right questions, and media does that. Media teaches you a lot, empowers you, it makes you informed, and in that process you make the right decision. We don't have those things in Eritrea. There's only one government-run radio, newspaper, and television, which is always government-run, and that means too much propaganda around it. Often when there is even events internationally that might trigger the same message, this news are not broadcasted in the national television of the country.
Yeah, very true. I want to go back to the inclusive constitution. Where can one find that info?
Well, the 1997 Constitution, you can just Google it on the internet, you will come across it. But there might be some few questions that people kind of get concerned with every now and then. You hear a few people complaining. So in that essence, I'm not saying it's not inclusive, because it was made up of, when they were building the Constitution, when it was made up of partly the APLF group, who later on called themselves PFDJ, and partly from the society as well. So we cannot call it's not inclusive, but there might need a little bit of a review on certain points, 1 or 2 points, I would say.
Okay. Do an update 19. Okay. So you feel like the media freeing up the open or having more of an open media will help tackle some of the education, empowerment, all those things to have a better connection to the country?
Yeah, definitely. Media informs society, and so that they can make better decision, and that's what lacks in Eritrea, among many other things. And it's always important to have a free media that brings, all the necessary information that society needs to know. And media is educational too. So we shouldn't just see it as something that just, this is a news, but it's a lot more than that we could expect from media.
Is there a motto? Sorry, I'm kind of going off of the. That was my last question. But is there a motto or a rule of thumb that keeps you going day by day, that you follow, kind of something that motivates you, or something that's like your daily quote?
Is it about my personal being or?
Sure. Like when you wake up and you just kind of look back at everything, is there like a motto or a quote that kept you going, or something that was like motivational, like even on days that you didn't think, how am I gonna like live or survive, or how did I get to, even education, looking at your accolades, just looking back, is there something that you just kind of, a quote or a motivation or a motto that you live by?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not a quote, but a sort of a statement. Just for you and I to have this communication, obviously you're using a device, and someone has to work hard to create that device. For me to be able to fly from California all the way to here, someone has to be a pilot and had to fly me to make sure I get here safe. So in that essence, so many creation has been created in this world, and they all are meant to better the life of others, or the life of yourself first and then others, but often to improve life for everybody. And to do so, you have to live in an open society, in a society that would allow you to think and be creative and think open and freely. And that brings me to what I want to say, which is compassion. Over the years, I came across so many people in my life, people I never knew and people I knew. But I want to talk about those people that I never knew. They just, many helped me, and I'm sure many did help you in your way on a daily basis. And that compassion, you could feel down, but when you see some people, not necessarily to you, even to others, helping out of nothing, just because it's a kind of kindness to do, or the right thing to do, or it makes the life of somebody better or brighter, or that of society. I think that's my drive. I want to see more compassionate society in this world. And when you have more compassionate society, you have more peace around the world. And in that process, more people who can create and invent things would evolve. But if you live in a society where fear becomes the way to live the day-to-day life, you're only going to think about how do I pass today, how do I make it today. And if I may have to make this personal, when I was in Eritrea, I was at the National Service and the military training camp, even during my education years. And that was what we were thinking every day, how do I pass by through this day? Am I going to get a shower? Am I going to get food that's decent? That's what our mind was technically thinking about those things on a day-to-day basis. And instead of thinking, how do I become a productive citizen? Because the environment didn't allow that environment to exist. For me to think about those things, the environment wasn't inviting. So whereas once you leave the country, you get to see other things. And obviously, like I said to you, for me to be able to sit at this chair and to be able to talk to you, many people came across my life, and their compassion and their good deeds is something that I ask myself why, you know, and is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And it's definitely a good thing. It definitely gets you to smile or to make a progress in life.